Many people in Nigeria, adults and children, have seen one or more persons roaming the streets in dirty, tattered clothes, very disheveled, picking dirty things from the ground, sometimes talking or laughing alone. These people are labeled mad, and everyone tries to avoid contact with them. This picture is what most people equate with mental illness. Because of this, people have a stereotyped conception of mental illness. This misconception is also reinforced by Africa Home videos, which most times depict mental illness like this stereotype. This picture is also one of the main reasons that so much stigma is attached to mental illness. In fact, people also believe the word mental is synonymous with madness. That is why many people find it difficult to accept that they or their loved one might be experiencing a mental disorder because their symptoms do not fit into this stereotype. The mad person stereotype of mental illness is also applied to children. Many parents will not hear or accept that their child has a mental disorder. They prefer to say it is a behavioral disorder. They do not understand that your behavior derives from your mental functioning. This stereotype also accounts for why a lot of people will not go to a psychiatrist, even when they have clear, unequivocal symptoms of a mental health disorder, because to them, seeing a psychiatrist means their illness is as worse as the mad person's, or their illness will end up like that. Therefore, they would rather go to other handlers with other nomenclatures or names, such as emotional therapist, non-specific therapist, emotional coach, and so on, who profess to have expertise in treating mental health disorders, but most times end up mismanaging the patient. Unfortunately, this running away from the unnecessary stigma of mental illness creates a reservoir for quacks to feed on. Some people do not understand that the word mental means the mind, just as cardiac and renal mean heart and kidney respectively. Mental illness refers to mind illness. It refers to a wide range of conditions that affect the mind. The mind is resident in the brain, which is a biological organ, just like other organs in the body. Mental illness is not all about mad person on the street. There are many other types which may be less drastic and dramatic depending on so many other factors. Mental ill health exists on a continuum of mild to moderate to severe, just like other illnesses. For example, the continuum of hypertension consists of mild, moderate, and severe hypertension. The same applies to mental illness. There is a wide range of mental illnesses, and the symptoms depend on the type, the stage of illness, the severity, and some other factors. Mental illness can happen to anyone. No one is immune. They are not illnesses that can be willed away. They are medical conditions that require treatment, just like other illnesses, like diabetes, arthritis, hypertension, glaucoma, asthma, and so on. As long as you have a brain, it can happen to you, even though there might be differences in the degrees of our vulnerabilities, that is, our susceptibilities. Not all types of mental illness will end up roaming on the street nude. When people have other symptoms of mental illness, they might hesitate to believe that it is still mental illness, but of another type, because the symptoms don't fit the stereotype associated with the label of madness. Someone might be severely disturbed mentally and still look well put together, still able to hide it under a normal facade, but they might be going through severe mental distress. Sometimes their productivity drops. Sometimes too, people immerse themselves in their work to distract them from the pain of their mental or emotional suffering or distress. And people around them may not even think that the person might be having some mental health issues. Why? Because they see him or her working very well. Like I said earlier, presentation also depends on the type. There are some mental health issues that affect the sense of reality. When the sense of reality is affected, which we call psychosis, the symptoms might be more easily observed. But when the sense of reality is still intact, The symptoms may not be very easily recognized, especially in the early stage, except by people who are very close to the person and observe changes in the nuances of the person's behavior or functioning. The situation with the mad person on the street described previously is that of a severe mental illness, either neglected by not taking the right treatment or for some other reasons, which results in consequent worsening and deterioration of the illness. Consider a case of diabetes, which is one type of a wide range of endocrine disorder, that is hormonal disorder. Let's say the fasting blood sugar is 180 milligram per dl. If attention is not given to this, the diabetes will worsen and progress into a diabetic emergency like diabetic ketoacidosis, diabetic coma, and finally death. It will be very wrong for anyone to view diabetes as inevitably resulting into either of these complications, because this will only happen if treatment is not instituted on time. It will also be very wrong for someone to say that all hormonal disorders manifest as diabetes, because there are many more hormonal disorders with different presentations and severities. Depression, for example, might progress from mild to moderate to severe, resulting in suicide if nothing is done on time. So also, it will be wrong for one to say that all depressed persons end up in suicide. There are many and different types of mental illnesses with different clusters of symptoms and degrees of intensity. There are, for example, anxiety disorders, bipolar disorders, depressive disorders, schizophrenia, substance use disorder, and many more. Mental health is the ability to think well, communicate, experience, express and control emotions appropriately, have positive relationships with other people, cope with the normal stresses of life, adapt well to changes, and be productive, maybe as a student or an apprentice or a merchant, an executive, a family man or woman. Any aberration or anomaly in mental functioning is called mental illness. As a student, your productivity is the capacity to learn appropriately. As a worker, your productivity is doing what you are paid to do and doing it well. So, for example, a child who is not learning well or communicating well or playing appropriately or expressing emotions as expected, he or she might have a mental disorder because the ability to achieve these competencies derive from the right functioning of the mind. This child can be greatly helped if the parents face this possibility early and the right assessment is done and the appropriate intervention instituted. The summary is that mental disorder or mental illness are illnesses of the mind. The brain is the organ of the mind and can be affected by illness just like any other organ in the body. Health and illness are parts of our existence as humans. Mental illness is not all about madness. There are many other types with different symptoms and manifestations. Madness on the streets is a result of an extreme form of mental illness which was neglected or inconsistently treated or not identified on time, or the person is not taken to the right place for treatment, or families and friends of such persons are living in denial. There are many other types where the external appearance is still intact, but there is intense subjective mental distress and suffering. Someone may appear dapper, but be very disturbed mentally and is functioning at a suboptimal level. Seeing a psychiatrist is not synonymous with being mad. There are evidence-based treatments for all types of mental disorders. Even that which is called madness is treatable. And in fact, many people previously roaming the streets and were removed and taken for psychiatric treatment by some good Samaritans recover fully and live thereafter productive lives. Thank you for listening.